the Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral, Florida.
3, 2, 1, engine start.
On November 26, 2011, scientists with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory launched their 19th unmanned mission to Mars. The Mars Science Laboratory is expected to enter the Martian atmosphere in August 2012. After deploying its parachute and landing on the surface, an automobile-sized remote-controlled rover named Curiosity will probe the red planet's past and present ability to sustain microbial life.
It's going to be able to roam around the surface of Mars. It's pretty fast compared to our old rovers. It can go the length of a football field in an hour. But it can also analyze the surface of Mars, and it's trying to find out, look, was there ever liquid water here, lakes, oceans, that kind of thing? What about the chemical composition of the soil? Is it the kind of thing that indicates that Mars was once a kinder, gentler world? It's not looking directly for life. We still don't do that.
We have evidence that although Mars is very cold now, has a very thin atmosphere, it once had a thick atmosphere, blue sky, clouds, rain, liquid water, the ingredients we think would be possible for life. So it's quite reasonable to imagine that life formed there long ago. The question is, could the life have survived as the planet got colder? Could it have gone below the surface, for instance? We think so.
If Wernher von Braun's visions of space travel could become reality and land a man on the moon, could his concept of human travel to Mars become a fact as well? And might NASA still be secretly developing his ideas, plans first drawn up nearly 60 years ago?
If you look at the research that was being done in field dynamics and very, very exotic physics back in the 1950s and even into the early 1960s, it's pretty clear that we were on a very exciting path towards very, very powerful breakthrough propulsion systems that would essentially allow us to create flying saucers that could travel very easily in very short amounts of time between the Earth and the Moon, between the Earth and Mars. So it makes complete sense that we do have this secret private program that maybe even a lot of the guys inside NASA themselves don't know about.
In the more near term, NASA and other space agencies talk about moving out into the solar system. And there we're looking at using a variety of extraterrestrial materials to produce propellants for rockets, oxygen for life support, even building materials.
Many researchers believe that the overt NASA missions are really a cover for what they call a secret space program, and that the secret space program is using different technology than rockets, more of an alien-type technology, some kind of anti-gravity type craft, and that those craft, rather than rockets, could be going to bases on the moon that would be secret bases, also manned by the American government or the secret space program. And that from those bases on the moon, we could even be journeying in these retro-engineered spacecraft to Mars.
According to scientists, the possibility of transforming Mars into an Earth-like planet is theoretically possible.
I think Mars is terraformable. Terraforming means to take life to a place that has no life and start growing the life there. I think Mars is unbelievably terraformable.
I can't imagine we'll ever reach a destination that answers all our questions. But as an astrobiologist, I think in the next 25 or 30 years, we have a very good chance of finding evidence of life beyond Earth. There's a real prospect we'll be able to answer that fundamental question, are we alone?
Most NASA scientists agree that future exploration of space will uncover life on other planets. But could it also reveal proof that the gods of the ancient world were in fact extraterrestrials, as ancient astronaut theorists believe?
NASA's real core mission in the beginning was essentially to go to the moon, retrieve evidence of the fact that there was a prior advanced civilization in the solar system and bring it back. In other words, prove that in fact we are descended from these gods, Isis, Osiris, Horus, and Set. Now that that goal's been accomplished, NASA's purpose seems to be part of this very, very slow revelation of information.
NASA asks the question of human origins. Where did we come from? Why are we here? And where are we going? They're dealing with space. And according to the ancient alien theory, our origins are not here on Earth, but up there. Space truly is the final frontier.
July 20th, 1969.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. Okay, I just checked.
Over 1 billion people worldwide are glued to their television sets as they watch the shadowy figure of astronaut Neil Armstrong slowly step off the ladder of the Apollo 11 lunar module onto the surface of the moon.
It's very fine. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The moment marks one of the most important events in the history of civilization. It is the first time a human being has set foot on alien terrain.
Apollo 11 is what people think of when you talk about Apollo today and Neil Armstrong setting foot on the moon. The moon is roughly 220,000 miles away from the Earth. Even the best telescopes can't see what you can see when you're just standing on the surface.
Before we went to the moon, NASA was cautioned by doomsday predictors and different people. People wonder what it would be like on a place like that, so different from this place here.
The idea of landing people on the moon has been in the imagination long before the technology was anywhere near making it possible. After all, to be on the moon is to step into a mythological landscape. The place of stories, the place of wonder, to step into the heavens and stand on ground of a kind that is not Earth.
It was a huge moment for the human spirit. While it was Americans that put a man on the moon, it was considered a victory for all of humanity. Suddenly, science fiction became real, and it opened up a new age of exploration.
I think that every journey starts with a first step. The moon was our first step into the universe, into our solar system. It is awesome to think that already 50 years ago, we became extraterrestrials on another planet.
The moon has captivated the imagination of humanity since the dawn of civilization. It is a quarter the size of the Earth and is by far the most dominant celestial body in the night sky.
It takes about 30 days to go round the Earth. The moon glows, and that's not because of any property within the moon. It's reflecting the rays of the sun, which causes it to glow. The reason that the moon has phases is that the Earth blocks the light of the sun, and as the moon moves round the Earth, so it incrementally gets a little bit more and a little bit more of the sun's rays.
The moon's importance is very great. It leads to tides. which help life transition from living in the ocean to living on land. It also stabilizes the Earth's tilt relative to its orbit. Without the moon, gravitational influences can cause the poles of planets to wander around kind of drunkenly, like a drunken sailor. The Earth would have been a much more chaotic place for life, especially advanced life, to develop if it wasn't for the moon.
While the moon is largely responsible for allowing life to flourish on Earth, this celestial body itself is inhospitable. It has no breathable oxygen, and temperatures on the surface reach extremes from 253 degrees Fahrenheit when it's facing the sun to minus 243 degrees in the shade.
It was a very serious environment because there's no oxygen. So the astronauts, once they were on the moon, they have to be completely sealed.
It's surface gravity, which is what really counts if you're going to go there, is about 1/6 of that on Earth, which is why when you see those grainy images of the early astronauts, they're sort of bouncing around. And the moon has no atmosphere whatever.
The astronauts, once they were on the moon, suddenly they were able to look at the world that they'd grown up on, the Earth, from a different place. They were able to see all of mankind in all its tininess in the universe. And that, I know, had a very profound effect on the astronauts.
July 29th, 1958. Responding to the successful launch of the Soviet space satellite Sputnik, President Dwight Eisenhower signs the National Aeronautics and Space Act, officially establishing NASA.
NASA was formed in 1958, partly out of a previously existing government agency called NACA that just dealt with aeronautics, and then with the early space program that was being developed by the Army and the Air Force.
NASA was established to take the United States into space and to be a contender in the new direction that humanity was moving, of exploring space and out into our solar system.
The President and Congress established NASA as part of the Department of Defense. The official reason was to prevent the Soviets from stealing U.S. technology. But some believe the real motive for this classification was not to hide information from the Soviets, but to hide it from the American public.
A lot of people have the idea that NASA is a civilian science agency, and it's not. It says right there in the act of Congress that created it, anything that they discover is subject to classification and being kept secret and being kept from the American people. The Brookings Report, which was commissioned by NASA right after NASA itself was created, essentially was commissioned for the purpose of deciding what NASA should do if in fact they made some sort of extraterrestrial contact. If they either found artifacts on the moon or on Mars, or if they had direct contact with a superior intelligence, what they should do. And the Brookings Report says very specifically, number one, don't tell anybody. If you tell anybody, it will shatter the fabric of our civilization. It will destroy us.
Some researchers believe the evidence of NASA's hidden agenda can be found in the close ties between its founding scientists and secret societies.
These secret societies had at their core essentially a belief that they were directly descended from these great gods of ancient Egypt, Isis, Osiris, and Horus. And they considered these gods to be truly the source of their bloodline, but also that these gods themselves came from space. At the very top, you had the Freemasons. You had James Webb, who was a director of NASA. You had a man named Kenneth Kleinknecht, who was the head of the Mercury program, the Apollo program, the Gemini program. He was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. Below them, you had the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, or followers of Aleister Crowley. People like Jack Parsons out at JPL were all put together, and so they all ended up under the very same roof with the very same agenda and the very same belief system.
We see this practice of passing knowledge down through a secret society go back all the way to the days of the Illuminati, who believed that a select few of the elite were smart enough, were capable of handling this secret knowledge, but not the population at large. So the question remains, has this knowledge been passed down through secret societies for generations? And this may predate the secret societies that we know about in modern times all the way back to the days of the pharaohs.
Like the ancient Egyptians, could NASA's founding fathers have shared the belief that humans descended from extraterrestrial beings? What did the members of these secret societies know about space travel? And how did the ancient past influence their work? Those who suspect these NASA officials operated a hidden agenda point to the repeated use of the number 33, an extremely important symbolic figure in secret societies.
If you look at the very first landing strip at Cape Canaveral, where we would be landing aircraft and eventually bringing the space shuttle back, it was runway 33. If you look at the launch pad at White Sands, New Mexico, the only launch pad is launch pad number 33. So it seems to permeate throughout NASA, this number 33 over and over again. And the fact that it's connected to Freemasonry makes you kind of wonder if maybe there was some other deeper symbolism working.
On August 15th, 1977, astronomer Dr. Jerry Eman was working on a SETI project at Ohio State University when he recorded an intermittent signal coming from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. The signal lasted 72 seconds before being lost. Eman believed that it was of extraterrestrial origin. But despite repeated searches and increasingly larger telescopes, the signal has never again been detected. But what if SETI intercepts a transmission from another world? What would happen next? According to SETI's post-detection protocols, once an extraterrestrial radio signal is confirmed, news of the event should be kept secret until the authorities have been notified. The government will then decide whether or not to try and make contact.
I think all bets are off, because here is this message. It could contain enormously important information that would transform our society and maybe destabilize it. What is it going to mean for the future of our civilization? These are momentous questions.
Today, SETI continues to scan the vicinities of nearby stars for artificially produced signals using several of the world's largest telescopes. In the next several years, when it becomes fully operational, SETI's new Allen telescope array will allow for the reconnaissance of up to 1 million stars.
SETI has to search a huge area. They'll tell you that now they have searched the equivalent of like a glass of water compared to the entire ocean on Earth. They have a long way to go.
While SETI listens passively to signals from outer space, NASA has attempted to contact alien life directly through messages sent aboard its space probes.
It's a long shot, but there's no reason in my mind not to expect that life evolved elsewhere. What's harder to predict or try and understand is how likely is it that it happened close enough that there'd be someone we could actually communicate with.
In 1972, NASA agreed to attach small plaques onto the outside of its twin Pioneer space probes, the first human-built objects destined to leave our solar system. NASA contacted Cornell University professor Dr. Carl Sagan to craft the message.
Carl Sagan was one of the most active astronomers in the search for life outside our planet. He was a very prominent scientist, he was an excellent astronomer, and he really did a lot to help us understand how we might contact other life or detect life elsewhere in the universe.
Sagan, along with SETI founder Frank Drake, designed a gold anodized aluminum plaque measuring roughly 6 by 9 inches that contained a collection of symbolic images representing humans and Earth.
The man and the woman were nude, and the gentleman was holding one arm up like this in what was intended to be a sign of greeting.
A schematic design of the solar system was also shown, with the planned trajectory of the Pioneer spacecraft marked on it, and a diagram of 14 pulsar stars around the Sun made a chart that might help someone work out where the craft originated.
We tried to give them an idea of where we're located. And that's an interesting problem, is to figure out how you would tell someone where you're located in space, because you don't know where they're going to find it. And it was all in a very stylistic design, but an attempt to hopefully communicate at least some of these ideas.
5 years later, in 1977, Dr. Sagan got a second chance at designing an interstellar message when NASA agreed to attach another one to the Voyager space probes. This time, Sagan created a record album made of gold-plated copper, along with a series of basic instructions in how to make it work. Sagan estimated that the metallic disc could survive in space for at least 1 billion years.
One of the challenges with technology is trying to figure out one that can do what you want. So here you want to encode audio and even some video images, but do it in a way that almost any other technologically advanced society could figure out. And the advantage of a record player is it's both mechanical and electrical. The grooves are obvious. And so they actually put on the cover instructions on how to play it.
The recording included a wide variety of sounds. A baby's cry, wind, surf and rain, animal noises, as well as classical and cultural music from around the world. One interesting song selection was Chuck Berry's rock and roll hit, Johnny Be Good.
Music is a good choice because almost anything vibrates and makes sound. So I would bet that almost any culture would develop music. I believe it's Bach who gets the most time on the record. I don't know why they picked that, to be honest, but he is one of the more mathematical composers, and that may have been one of the reasons, because math is a more universal language.
Sagan also included a wide array of photographs of well-known man-made structures and greetings in 55 different languages.
I think the most important one is the Sumerian language. Now, why would they include Sumerian on that record? Well, according to the ancient alien theory, ancient Sumeria is the first place where we made contact with an extraterrestrial entity.